All right. Brad Kearns of Peluva Footwear, welcome to Move Your DNA.
Oh my gosh, what an honor, Katy. I love connecting with you.
You've always been kind of a power athlete. I know you were a speed golfer for a while and you have a background of endurance athletics, but I think of you, I mean, I'm looking at your logo right now. It's someone doing a high jump, like a was that Fosbury flop? Not sure.
Someone, yeah, that someone is me. But my whole life, Katy, was an extreme endurance athlete experience. I competed on the pro triathlon circuit for 9 years, and was training all day in the extreme endurance events of swimming, bicycling, and running for hours and hours every day. So we were obsessed with just increasing endurance competency and didn't really care that much about power. Of course, you become a pretty fast bicycle rider if you're riding for hours every day in the mountains. And when it's time to race for a 1 hour time trial, you can put out a lot of energy. And same with running. I had to run pretty fast in the Olympic distance of triathlon, but I was not anywhere near a well-rounded, full competency athlete because there was such a huge demand for that endurance competency that I spent all my energy on that every single day. Now, in recent years, as a master's track and field athlete, I've completely transformed my approach to fitness, training, and have a desire to pursue athletic goals that are really closely associated with aging and longevity, aging gracefully. So now I'm trying to be a well-rounded, fully balanced athlete. And that means that a lot of my training energy is dedicated to preserving explosive power and strength and the things that we lose at an extreme rate compared to being able to preserve a baseline of aerobic competency. But I think there's a huge void in people in the older age groups trying to preserve anaerobic muscle strength and power. And that's where the biggest fitness gains can come from. And the biggest return on investment for any exercise is doing the brief, explosive, high intensity work.
And now that you are more of a power athlete, I want to ask you too, like, what are your events that you're doing? Like, just for people who
So,
don't.
going from this background as a pro triathlete, I am now officially a master's track and field sprinter and high jumper. So I compete at
Mm.
400 meters is my favorite event. That's one lap around a track. And then the high jump, if you're hopefully familiar with, is the bar hanging up there and you run up and try to jump over it, as you see on my picture. So the high jump, the whole entire effort lasts for like 5 seconds. So I went from racing for between 2 and 8 hours in triathlons to now my goal event is a 5 second burst of energy where I jump off the ground as high as I can. And the 400 meters, I'm proud to say at age 60, I ran a 60 seconds for that. So I ran my age in the 400 meters. I'm hoping to bust a minute in future meets, especially as I, continue to get older. I want to still be fast, powerful, and explosive. So the training is completely different than heading out on the bicycle for 3, 4, or 5 hours every day and running for 30 minutes or 60 minutes or 2 hours and swimming back and forth laps, as we did when we were younger triathletes.
That's interesting, the concept of training time. So as you've gotten older, do you feel like you are better able to maintain your overall fitness level with a shorter time investment? Like, are you really the number of hours per week that you are training has gone significantly down, but you would say you're about the same fitness level?
Oh my gosh, I appreciate the question so much because it's been like the most amazing awakening for me, thinking, especially Katy, as I finished my triathlon racing career. I raced from ages 20 to 30. I traveled all over the world. I had great success when I was doing my best. I was national champion. I was ranked number 3 in the world at my best. And I also got my butt kicked a lot of times and got tired and exhausted and just realized just how crazy this endeavor I was pursuing and how disconnected it is from general health and vitality. And by the time I was 30, when I retired, I was so exhausted from all the travel and all the training that I walked around, like this. I'm walking around in a slouch manner if you're not watching. And I actually felt like I was an 80-year-old human. And I'd wake up every morning after sleeping for 9, 10, or 11 hours due to
Mhm.
the training load. And I'd wake up and I'd shuffle down the hall, limping and shuffling my feet and just feeling tired most of the time, except for my next bike ride. And I had to summon my energy and get out there. So it was an awakening to realize what does being fit and energetic and vital and aging gracefully really mean.
Okay, well, you're talking about, like, limping and shuffling. So
That's right.
now you're working with shoes. So, I kinda wanna interview you about Peluva a little bit too. So, Peluva, for those of you who don't know yet, are five-toe shoes. They're toe shoes. But I would say how they differ from other toe shoes on the market is they have a little bit of cushion. I don't know if you call it cushion. Is that
Mhm.
how you refer to it? Yeah, they've got a little bit more
Mhm.
cushion, as people are listening to this episode and thinking, "Yeah, you know what? I do need to try things a little bit more explosively," I don't necessarily use the word intense for this, but yes, I think the overall effort is increased with the idea that you're going faster, even if it's briefly, this idea you're adding a little bit of explosiveness. I imagine people listening who have sore feet, thinking, "I don't think my feet can handle that." We were talking about jumping earlier and a little bit of plyometrics, this idea of there needing to be a little bit more cushion than maybe taking that regular even keel walk. Is Peluva a sporting shoe? Like, would you put it in that category? I think of it as an athletic shoe, but how do you think of it?
There was a little bit of an explosion in popularity early on in the barefoot shoe movement, and then things crashed because people realized, hey, these things are really tough on my feet. I'm getting sore. I'm getting injured. So we sat back and watched this barefoot movement come and go, and realized that there was a happy medium here where you could create a shoe with that cushioning and that comfort to allow more people to do more things and gradually and steadily build back to barefoot competency. And in great books like Whole Body Barefoot, written many years ago by Katy and many others, these ideas come up where, look, we do want to get our bodies back to a natural type of living. And one of those things is going barefoot as much as possible, or wearing a minimalist shoe rather than a maximal shoe when you're doing whatever activities. But we make a point of saying, look, these are not shoes that you're going to switch out for your existing running shoes because your feet can't take it. But what we want you to do is start living a more barefoot inspired lifestyle. So that means going barefoot around the house. Hey, if it's cold out, wear the five-toe socks that we offer along with our shoes. Because, of course, you can't wear regular socks and fit into a five-toe shoe.
No.
And then the Peluvas with that cushion, those are great for walking down the sidewalk for miles because you're not getting traumatized by the concrete. Or same with an indoor setting, you can wear them to work and you feel fine. Even if you're the person at Costco checking people out and checking their receipts and you're standing around a lot through your shift. So they're a more versatile and gentle way to transition into that barefoot inspired lifestyle.
So they're a good transition shoe. And also, do you wear them for your sports?
Yeah, good question. It's a nuanced answer. And we don't want people to get injured. We don't want people to have too abrupt of a transition to anything. So when I'm doing my sprinting, and I learned this the hard way because I keep having these little creeping up of aches and pains and little minor injuries. And so I wear a heavily cushioned shoe to do my actual sprint workouts. Nike Free's my favorite choice because it has the flexible sole, but it's got that big old heel that we're
Yeah.
familiar with. I can't do my sprinting in the Peluva shoes because it's a lot of trauma to the tendons when I'm trying to run fast. So I'm wearing my shoes to go and warm up and do my drills. And there's a lot of videos of me on Peluva YouTube channel, sprinting drills that you can do, like high knees and heel kicks and things like that that we're familiar with that are low impact. So when I sprint up hills or upstairs or push the sled, these are other types of sprinting that are not high impact, high tendon trauma on flat ground. I wear the Peluvas for everything I can. And then when it's time to, or for example, race, I'm wearing spikes. So when I high jump, I wear a steel plated high jump spike with spikes in the heels and the toes. And that's what you want to high jump in because it's a pretty violent activity to run up and slam on the brakes and try to jump over the bar. So the specialized athletic shoes are always great. And then the rest of your life is where you have a chance to strengthen your feet by giving them a shoe that allows for, of course, the five separated toes, the flat, flexible sole that you can fold in half and demonstrate and all those things. Oh, it might have a demonstration. So here's what we talk about if you're
You're
watching.
gonna have to give an audio play-by-play, though, for people
Yeah,
who are
yeah. If
listening,
you're
so
watching,
to say exactly what's happening.
I'm holding a Peluva shoe and I'm squeezing it into a ball and making it
Crumbling it
into
into your
a
palms.
round thing. And
Yeah.
this is actually a very positive attribute for your footwear to have that flexible sole. Sometimes people come up at our trade shows or meeting with the public and they say, "Oh, does it have a lot of arch support?" And I'm like, "No, it has no arch support whatsoever because we want your arch to support itself, and this is your shoe."
BYOA. Bring your
Yeah,
own arches.
there you go. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, I asked you that specifically because I know the answer, but I want people to really hear this idea of shoes are tools. And, you were talking earlier about, like, overly cushioned shoes. A lot of those overly cushioned athletic looking shoes that we wear for fashion were in fact designed for athletes who are very heavy, who are creating all sorts of gnarly forces to their body as they're doing their sport, but they just became sort of iconic, and we wanted to adorn ourselves with those icons. Um, and then it's like, well, if you're not generating those amazing forces that go into this sport, then they become sort of a hindrance to how you move your body. So it's this idea of knowing, picking the right tools. There's a tool for the right sport, and then there's a tool. Um, a shoe is a fashion statement, but it's also a tool for recovery if you are an athlete, or maybe high volume, low loads in your shoes is the bulk of your training. It's the bulk of your movement diet, in which case that works too. And one of my children is a high level soccer player and was experiencing some heel pain. Injuries come up, and I have teenagers now, and they've got their fashion shoes, and they're not all minimal shoes, and I
Mhm.
when they bought them, they're like, "These aren't that flexible, but it's what everyone wears, and it's what I wanna wear." I was like, "Of course." But what I had pointed out, we did a ton of stretching and a ton of massage for it, and I said, "Now, what I'm doing on you right now, your shoe is sort of undoing. The fashion shoe that you've
Just so you
got,
know.
just so you know." And so, like, you wanna be a high level athlete. You're lucky that you've got a mom here showing you the stretches and doing the manual release and all these things for you, but part of why I like this attribute of a shoe is because it sort of does this low grade stretching for you all of the time when you're not training. So that means when you're walking to and from school, when you're, playing on, at recess or whatever, you're not further contributing to the injury that's coming from these high load, high agility moves. And so, I noticed a switch of the shoes. I didn't say anything
Mhm.
because, don't wanna comment on any of it at all, and just watch that injury dissipate to the point of it needing nothing else. So it was more the shoe. It was like the fashion shoe looked more closely to the sporting shoe.
Was
They
there
had a lot of that sporting feature, but I'm like, "You're not playing a sport all the time. Sometime your heel just wants to come down to the ground." And so that was a transition within my own minimal shod house with everyone who knows it, but just that's also a parenting tip.
parenting tip, just those nice, gentle comments and leading by example rather than
Yeah, yeah.
lecturing and browbeating. "Look at that. Look what comes around." Yeah.
And so now reaching for that shoe, I watch the decision every day. It's like, this shoe or that shoe? It's like, I'm gonna grab the one that makes me feel
Mm.
better.
Yeah. Awesome. That's
But
interesting. You made that comment about, the development of the elevated cushion athletic shoe, and the reason that Nike came out with the original running shoe, the waffle trainer in 1974, 1975, was, um, uh, Bill Bowerman, the coach of Oregon, was trying to figure out a way that his Olympic level runners wouldn't get injured when they were running 20 miles a day on the rudimentary pre-Nike shoe, which had no
mhm,
padding. And so they're
mhm.
running around with, these crazy little shoes because there was no training back then. There was no running boom. It was just the highest level elite runners. So it was designed for very, very competent, light framed, extremely fit runners to run more mileage without getting injured. And then, of course, when
And what
commerce
age were they? And young?
right, these are 22-year-old
That's
super
right.
free. whippets and greyhounds
Yeah, and
running.
who aren't gonna run after they're done with their sport, as opposed to making it sort of this lifelong habit. So
Yeah.
it was a very specific tool that got just sort of, generalized and well distributed. Well done, Nike. Okay, but now
I
I
know.
wanna ask you, are there any I wear Peluvas for sports where I want a little bit more cushion. Like, if I'm gonna play, I'm not a racquetball player, but I will go out and play racquetball. I'm not a tennis player, but I will go out, and whack some balls around with friends casually, and I actually like the Peluvas for that extra little bit of cushion. Is there a problem with me doing that?
The problem will come about if you're sore and stiff the next day, and that's your indication that maybe you're going to back off a little bit. And this is just a general comment about any shoe you're wearing or anything that you're trying to make as a transition. So, for most people doing most things, that padding is really coming in handy. It's especially effective to do all the things that you do in the fitness center, gym classes, strength training, anything where you're anchored to the ground and needing to achieve balance and mobility.
All right, well, is there anything else you want us to know about your shoes? What's coming up for Peluva? What do you have new on the
It's
market?
really cool. We launched with like a standard. It was called the Strand Lightweight Trainer, and it had the flat, flexible sole with the strategic wear pattern, so it could be more flexible. The five toes, and then we have now expanded out into these more specialized models. One of them's called the Peluva Apollo Golf Shoe. One giant step for One small step for mankind, one giant innovation in golf shoe technology. Because golf, interestingly, this might help illustrate some of the concepts we're talking about. When you're swinging a club and trying to generate power in the golf swing, guess what's anchored to the ground? That's right, your feet. So your feet are the base for generating power in a golf swing and also achieving balance and a graceful transfer of energy as you go through the swing pattern. So you need to feel what's going on at all times in the golf swing. And yet, what's a regular golf shoe like? They're giant, rigid. Of course, you need the spikes, and now you use rubber spikes instead of metal spikes, but you need that traction on the grass. But we absolutely do not want to be in an elevated heel position to swing the golf club, because that throws off the balance of our body standing there with the club in hand trying to make a good swing. And so we're really excited about particularly going to the game of golf, where foot uh, interaction with the ground is so important. We call it ground feel. It could be the same as proprioception, or just knowing what's going on and being connected to the ground. And I'm happy to offer your listeners a 15% discount code for shopping at peluva.com. That's Peluva. Go to the store, pick your favorite pair, and enter the discount code Nutritious Movement into the field at checkout for that 15% discount. Nutritious Movement.
Well, I love Peluva. Thank you so much for sponsoring this podcast. I really appreciate it. And yeah, let us know when you get that. I want 59 instead of 60 next year.
I'm so happy to still have some competitive intensity and a purpose and a goal. And I think that's really important as we age, especially. You don't have to put on a number and actually compete in a formal competition, but there's something to the idea of setting a challenging goal that seems a little scary.
Yeah, get in the game. Get in the game. The game can change, but you got to get in it. Doesn't
You
have to
got
be
to
the
get in
same
it.
game, but you got
Yep,
to get in the game. You got to get in a game.
for sure. Could look any form you want, but that's for sure.
But get in there. All right,
Yeah.
great. Thanks for coming, Brad.
Thanks a lot, Katie. Keep it up.